and a very warm welcome to the Analyst dated 12th August 2025, brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be covering the 7 set of current affairs issues which are featured in today's newspaper. The handout of this very discussion is available in the description below for your future reference. Beginning with the analysis section, as various political parties have raised allegations with regard to the functioning of ECI, so in this respect, we'll try and understand that why ECI is losing its credibility and what steps the government need to take in order to embolden the citizens' trust in the election mechanism. Moving on to the second topic, herein we'll try and understand that what all roadblocks women witness when it comes to participation in the workforce, and what steps the government has taken in this regard, and what more needs to be done in order to enhance the participation of women in the workforce in India. Moving on to the simplified section, herein we'll be covering the 5 set of current affairs issues in the most simple manner possible, and we'll also be doing the relevant value addition from the prelims perspective. So stay tuned. So let's begin with our first topic, which is dealing with the functioning of Election Commission of India. This particular topic you can relate with GS paper 2, which deals with functions and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. So when I talk about Election Commission of India, it has been given the responsibility under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution that it has to ensure free and fair elections in India. But in the recent times, this particular body is losing its credibility. Why? Because various allegations have been raised with regard to the functioning of this particular entity. And what has happened recently? So the opposition political party leaders have marched towards the Delhi office of Election Commission of India, demanding rollback of the special intensive revision of the electoral rolls which is taking place in the state of Bihar. Why? Because they are concerned that this particular exercise might be leading to loss of right to vote when it comes to various voters in the state of Bihar. Now, in this backdrop, let's just understand that why this particular entity is losing its credibility in the recent times. First and foremost, when it comes to the Special Intensive Revision, SIR, which is going on in the state of Bihar, this particular entity did not conducted any prior public consultation. We as public, we have all the right to know that why a particular decision is being taken. But that was not done when it comes to SIR in the state of Bihar. And under this particular SIR exercise which is taking place in the state of Bihar, this particular body would be doing the verification of 8 crore voters. And recently, ECI has declared that this exercise would be extended to the entire nation. This goes against the very idea of participatory democracy. Whatever decision is being taken, we have all the right to know that why a particular decision is being taken, but there is no clarity when it comes to ECI. Okay, no prior consultation was done with the public before coming up with this SIR exercise in the state of Bihar. Then, when you talk about the revision of electoral rolls which took place in the state of Bihar, which is ongoing currently, the first phase, after the first phase, what we see that 65 lakh voters were deleted from the Bihar's first voter list draft. And on an average, 27,000 voters' names have been deleted per constituency. Now, on account of this, what we are seeing that citizens are losing the trust in the election mechanism as well as the ECI. And this you can validate by pointing out the survey conducted by the National Confederation of Dalit and Adivasi Association that around 27% of the Dalit voters in the state of Bihar have lost trust in this particular entity. Then this particular SIR which is going on in the state of Bihar is also against the electoral integrity. Why? Because in general ECI has stated that we have deleted these many voters from the Bihar first draft of voter list. Why? Because some people have died, some people have permanently migrated away from the state of Bihar, and we have seen same person being enrolled at multiple constituencies. Okay, but when it shared the booth level list of deletions with the political parties, it did not mention that why the name of a particular person A has been deleted. Now, if you are not sharing the details or the reasons why a particular person A name have been deleted from the first voter list draft that has been released with respect to state of Bihar, it would be very difficult for the political party to verify that whether this deletion was justified or not. So it goes against the right to vote, and this would be disproportionately impacting the minority segment when it comes to the state of Bihar, especially the migrant population. Because one of the reasons given by ECI is many of the people have permanently migrated away from the state of Bihar. So political party needs to verify this, that is this exactly the reason or not. Then when it comes to the ECI idea that we need to, carry out this special intensive revision with respect to the entire nation. Why the ECI has floated this particular idea? So ECI has given an affidavit to the Supreme Court, and in that affidavit it has stated that based on some independent appraisal, we have got to know that there are a lot of discrepancy when it comes to the electoral rolls. But the affidavit which the ECI has submitted to the Supreme Court, in that particular affidavit, it has not talked about that which independent appraisal report are you talking about. So when we as citizens don't know on what basis you are making this claim that we need a nationwide SIR exercise, this goes not just against our right to vote, it also goes against the fundamental right to information as well. Then various experts have raised this concern that this SIR exercise is a backdoor mechanism to implement the National Register of Citizen. So National Register of Citizen is basically wherein we'll be having the proper detail of the Indian citizens, and based on that the government would be able to identify that which all people are illegal immigrants. Then when your name is not there in the electoral roll, it not just imply that you will be losing right to vote, it could also have negative implications when it comes to your citizenship. Because the election officers have this power that they can refer the cases of suspected foreign nationals to the competent authority under the Citizenship Act of 1955. So if your name is not there in the electoral roll, it is not just going to impact your right to vote, it would also have negative implications for your citizenship as well. Then recently the opposition political party leader Rahul Gandhi has pointed out various types of vote chori with respect to the Mahadevapura assembly segment in Bangalore. What are the different types of vote chori that the opposition political party has pointed out? That there were duplicate voters, fake and invalid addresses were there, bulk voters have a single address wherein only 2 or 3 people can actually be accommodated. That address has been given by 80 to 100 number of voters. Okay, that's not possible. Then invalid photos, sometimes the photo is being zoomed, sometimes it is being zoomed out. Okay, so invalid photos is also there. And misuse of Form 6. This Form 6 is to be used by the new voters, okay, who are in the age bracket of 18 to maybe 22 years. But what we have seen in this particular constituency, that this Form 6 is being used by people who are 80 or even 90 plus, and they are using this to vote at different places. So this is another allegation which have been raised against the functioning of ECI. Then another discrepancy that we found was with respect to the voters' data which was shared by ECI after the general election of 2024. So right after the Lok Sabha election, the Association of Democratic Reforms carried out an analysis, okay, and it tallied the number of votes that were polled and the number of votes that were counted. This was equal for only 5 parliamentary constituencies. There was quite difference between the number of votes polled and the number of votes counted in 362 constituencies, wherein this Association of Democratic Reforms found out that 5.5 lakh fewer votes were counted than what was actually polled. And in 176 constituencies, 35,000 extra votes were counted compared to what was actually the number of votes polled. So don't you think this was being done to give a winning edge to the, the ruling political party? This might be the case. Then another allegation which has been raised with respect to the Maharashtra electoral roll. When the Lok Sabha elections were being carried out, at that time the number of voters were less, but after 6 months, when the State Legislative Assembly of Maharashtra was being carried out, there was a sudden increase in the number of voters. How come that is possible just in 6 months? Then what we have witnessed in, when the Lok Sabha elections were going on in 2019, there was severe violation of the Model Code of Conduct, and the experts have raised concerns with respect to that, with respect to launch of Namo TV, with respect to release of biopic on the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So all these things point out to what? Declining credibility of ECI as an institution. Now, having discussed the recent issue, let's just understand the perpetual issues which impact the functioning of this particular entity. First and foremost, there are issues with the appointment and the removal process when it comes to members of ECI. When I talk about the appointment process, in Anup Baranwal versus Union of India case, Supreme Court has stated that there would be a selection committee which would be consisting of the CGI, leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Prime Minister. But the recent act which the Parliament has introduced with respect to the appointment of CEC and the other Election Commissioners Act, we don't have CGI, rather in his place we have a Union Minister. So this is the issue when it comes to the appointment process. Ultimately, the government would be appointing that particular member as a member of ECI whom they want, and they know that this person would be working in favor of the ruling political party. So this is the issue with the appointment process. Then what is the issue with the removal process? So when you talk about the Chief Election Commissioner, their removal process is same as we have the removal process of the Supreme Court judge. But when it comes to the other election commissioners, they can be removed on the recommendation of Chief Election Commissioner. So they don't enjoy the same level of security of tenure which is being provided to CEC. So this is another issue. Why? Because if the other election commissioners are not being provided with the security of tenure, they might be susceptible to the political pressures. Then post-retirement benefits, when it comes to the members of ECI, they are not debarred from accepting other government posts. So this raises concerns of conflict of interest. Then there is lack of financial independence. Unlike the other constitutional bodies like UPSC, like your CAG, the expenses of the ECI are not charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. That means the expenses of this particular body, ECI, is subjected to annual vote of the Parliament. Then it does not have the power to deregister the political party even when it is not complying, or even if it is violating the Model Code of Conduct. So in this respect, the Supreme Court in Indian National Congress versus Institute of Social Welfare has clearly stated that ECI do not have the power to deregister the political parties. 2002 judgment of the Supreme Court. And in that very judgment, the Supreme Court has stated that a political party could be deregistered only if the registration of that political party was obtained by fraud, if that party is declared to be illegal by the central government, or if the party amends its internal constitution in a way that it violates the Indian constitution and it has been notified to the Election Commission of India. Why it has been done? To ensure the neutrality when it comes to the functioning of ECI. But because of this, what we are seeing is political parties are vehemently violating the Model Code of Conduct, and ECI is not able to do anything with that respect. Now, having understood that what all challenges this particular entity is facing, let's just look into what all good measures this particular entity has taken in order to enhance the voter participation when it comes to the electoral mechanism and in the direction of ensuring free and fair election. So, this particular entity took due action with respect to violation of Model Code of Conduct. For example, when the Prime Minister photo was there earlier on the COVID certificates, when the Model Code of Conduct was in force, when the elections were being carried out in the different states in 2024. So in that respect, since it was violating the Model Code of Conduct, ECI made sure that the Prime Minister photo is removed from the COVID certificates. Then it has come up with the C-Vigil app, which ensures the citizens' participation in the electoral process, wherein if the Model Code of Conduct is in force in a particular constituency, and if you see that any political, party is violating the Model Code of Conduct, then you can raise the concern on this particular app, and you can also track the progress of the complaint that you have made on this particular app. Then, in order to improve the voters' education and in order to enhance the participation of the electors in the democratic process, in the election process, we have the sweep program. Okay, so wherein the ECI is focusing upon voter education and enhancing their participation in the electoral process. Then it took adequate steps in order to make the election process more accessible. So we are using Braille signage when it comes to the EVMs. The Election Commission of India, when 2019 general elections were being carried out, it made sure that the wheelchairs are there, accessible infrastructure is there when it comes to the polling booths. And then it took due action against the paid news. What is paid news? According to Press Council of India, paid news is any news which is being published on any media, maybe print or electronic media, for which the payment is being given in cash or kind. So this gives undue advantage to a particular political party. So in this respect, in 2020, ECI has proposed that we need to make paid news and false affidavit as an electoral offence under the Representation of People's Act, which should actually result in disqualification of that particular candidate and a 6-month jail term for filing false declaration. And recently, when the opposition political party raised the concern with regard to EPIC, electoral photo identity card, that same EPIC number are seeing in different states. So in this respect, ECI accepted its mistake that since earlier we were doing the registration of the voters in a manual manner, now we are using the technology and it addressed this particular issue of same EPIC number in different states. And ultimately, because of these steps taken by the ECI, what we have seen is that there is an increase in the voter turnout from 1951 to 2019. Now, having understood the issues with respect to functioning of this particular body and what steps it has taken, let's just understand what more steps we need to take in order to embolden the trust of the citizens when it comes to the election mechanism. So first and foremost, we need to reform the appointment process. So what was suggested by the Supreme Court in Anup Baranwal versus Union of India case, that in the selection committee, we need to have CJI, Chief Justice of India, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha and the PM. So this selection committee should be put in place so that we can make sure that the government of the day or the ruling party is not able to have its say when it comes to appointment of the members of ECI. Then we need to ensure uniform removal procedure when it comes to CEC and when it comes to other election commissioners as well. So the other election commissioners should also be removed on the same ground and in the same manner as a judge of the Supreme Court is removed. You need to let me know in the comment section that what are the grounds on which a Supreme Court judge is removed and what is the procedure, what kind of majority we need. Do we need simple majority or special majority? Then when it comes to accepting other government posts after retirement, there should be a cooling off period. Okay, after that cooling off period, maybe for 2 years, then only the chief election commissioners and the other election commissioners should be allowed to accept any other government job. Okay, this would make sure that the members of this particular body are not working for the ruling government per se, and this would also help us in enhancing the citizens' trust when it comes to functioning of this particular entity. Then we need to ensure financial independence. So this was one of the recommendation given by the Supreme Court in Anup Baranwal versus Union of India case, that the expenses of the Election Commission of India should also be charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, it has told the Parliament to bring the necessary changes in the law. Then in order to ensure that it is not dependent upon the government for the lower staff appointment, the second ARC recommended that this particular entity should be provided with an independent secretariat also, so that it can work in an autonomous manner, independent manner, okay, and it can ensure that autonomous functioning when it comes to appointment of the lower staff as well. It should not be dependent upon the government. Then Dinesh Goswami committee has suggested that ECI should be given the power to deregister the political party if they fail to contest the election for a specified period. Just delete this particular statement. Okay, so that the ECI can ensure that the political parties are not merely being created to get the tax benefit, okay, under the Income Tax Act. And lastly, in order to enhance the citizens' trust when it comes to functioning of this particular body, ECI should move in the direction of nationwide SIR only when it carry out the consultation with the important stakeholders and the public. And there should be transparency in whatever decision it is taking. It should come out with the reasons that if there is discrepancy in the electoral roll, it should accept the mistake and it should work in, that direction so that we can remove the discrepancy when it comes to the electoral rolls. Because the first step to improve your mistake is acceptance of that mistake. And this applies to UPSC preparation also. Until and unless you remain ignorant of your mistake, you will not be able to improve upon that. That's all with respect to this particular topic. We have a PYQ on this line, so do practice this, and I've also framed a practice question for you people from this particular topic. So try to jot down the points that we have discussed right now and try and attempt this particular question. With this, let's move on to the next topic. Now, beginning with the second topic, which is dealing with the barriers that the women face when it comes to participation in the workforce in India. This particular topic we can associate with GS paper 1, issues related to women. Now, what is the context? Recently, the Supreme Court has struck down the Indian Army recruitment policy for the post of Judge Advocate General. Why? Because what we saw is, even when the female candidates were getting higher marks as compared to the male candidates, but because of reservation policy for men, when it comes to this particular post, the post was being offered to the male candidate. And as this was violative of right to equality, that is the reason the Supreme Court struck down this particular recruitment policy of the Indian Army. Now, in this context, let's just first understand that what do we mean by female labor force participation rate? So, it basically is a ratio of the females who are either working or are actively seeking for jobs divided by the females which are there in the working age population. So, when I talk about India, the female labor force participation rate has actually increased from 23% in 2017-18 to 37% in 2022-23, and in 23-24 it is currently 41%. But according to the National Council of Advanced Economic Research, the labor force participation rate when it comes to females in India, it is less when you compare it with the global average. Global average is 47%, and in OECD countries it is even higher, it is 67%. Now, before we explore the reasons of why the female labor force participation rate is less as compared to the global average, now before we discuss the reasons of low female force participation rate in India, I want to discuss with you an important hypothesis, that is U-shaped hypothesis, which was given by Claudia Golden, for which she was also awarded with the Nobel Prize in Economics. This hypothesis tells us the relationship between female labor force participation and the economic development. So, according to this hypothesis, when in a particular country we see that the agriculture is the dominating sector, okay, the agriculture is contributing more to the GDP. In that case, what we see, higher female labor force participation rate. Why? Because agriculture fields are usually situated near their homes. So, females are able to easily manage their household responsibility as well as their professional work. But as and when we see economic development, that means the contribution of industrial sector increases in the GDP, what happens? We see a reduction in the female labor force participation rate. Why? First reason is income effect. As and when a family start earning more, women tend to withdraw from the workforce and they start focusing upon the household responsibility, taking care of the elderly as well as the children. Another reason is industrial, settings. The industrial units are situated far away from their homes. So, they are not able to manage their professional as well as their household responsibility. Then over a period of time, as we see a service-led economy, what we see? Again, a rise in the female labor force participation rate. Why? Because service sector gives you the opportunity of work from home. So, work from home enables the females to manage both their household as well as their professional commitments. And another reason being increase in the educational attainment also when it comes to females, and with the coming up of the contraceptive pills, female have more say when it comes to their reproductive rights. So, they can effectively do their family planning. So that is another reason why we are seeing an increase in the female labor force participation rate, and that is also something that you can witness with respect to India, because India is also a service-led economy. Now, let's just explore the reasons for lower participation of females when it comes to the workforce. I am talking in respect of the global average. Although we saw that the female labor force participation rate is increasing over a period of time, but still it is less than the global average. What are the reasons? First and foremost reason is high degree of informalization in the Indian economy. So, according to the International Labour Organization study in 2018, what we saw that more than 90% of the Indian working women are actually working in the informal sector, wherein they don't enjoy security of wages, and they are also not being provided with the living wage. We have discussed the concept of living wage in the previous analyst, but I would repeat that again. Living wage is when we don't just take into account the expenditure which an individual has to do on food, clothing and shelter, but we also take into account the expenditure which a person has to do on education and health. Okay, so when it comes to the informal sector, therein the women are not able to get the living wage. And when you talk about the the city settings, if they are working in informal sector, here there is transportation cost also, so they are able to save very less amount. So that is another reason why the females are getting out of the workforce. Then there is huge gender pay gap also. If you go by the economic survey of 2018, India has one of the largest gender pay gap when it comes to median earning of the full-time employees. Okay, and if you go by the Oxfam World Inequality Report of 2022, therein it has pointed out that 82% of the labor income is being earned by the men, and women only get 18% of the labor income. So this highlights the gender pay gap. Then another issue that women are facing is glass ceiling. So it is a barrier which you cannot see exactly, but since the top management think that woman, since she has to take care of her children, elderly population, she would not be able to give due justice to the professional commitments, and that is the reason we see that women are not elevated after a particular post, and that you can see from this particular data point also, which I have taken from The Hindu, which points out that senior leaders are less as compared to the female representation across the workforce. Okay, it was 16% when I talk about senior leaders, and currently it is 18%. So in the big corporate houses, you will not see female leaders. Okay, it is because of the glass ceiling. Then what we are seeing that women are majorly getting the employment in the pink collar jobs, okay, wherein they have to actually do the care work, for example, hospitality sector, teaching job, etc. And when you talk about the defense, Army, Air Force, etc., according to the Ministry of Defense, we merely have 13% women in the Indian Air Force, and the number is roughly 6% in the Indian Army and in the Indian Navy. Why? Because when it comes to the Army, therein the top management has this approach that this job requires more physical work, okay, and that could not be properly being done by the female, and that is the reason we see very lower participation of the women when it comes to the defense sector. Then there is double shift burden of work. According to the recent time use survey, women spend 7 times more time when it comes to doing the domestic work. So what does this imply? That there is lack of gender sensitization. Men do not take active participation when it comes to doing the domestic work. Then there are safety concerns also. As you can see, this data point has been sourced from National Commission for Women, and as we have seen that the number of cases are on a rise. Harassment, and majority of the cases we are witnessing from the state of UP. So women face harassment when they are traveling through the public transport. There are cases of sexual harassment at workplace also. So ultimately because of the safety concern, family members pressurize the woman to withdraw from the labor force. Then there are mid-career dropouts. What do we mean by mid-career dropouts? We have seen that as and when a woman has her first child, she drops out from the workforce. Why? Because she is unable to balance the domestic as well as the professional commitments, okay, because she has to bear the burden of unpaid care work. So according to a study which was carried out by Ashoka University, what we saw that 73% of the women in India leave their job after giving birth and they fail to return. Now, why there is a need to enhance the participation of the female in the workforce? This would enable us to give a boost to our GDP, because according to the International Monetary Fund, India's GDP would increase by 27% if we ensure active participation of the females in the workforce. Then this would enable us to tackle feminization of poverty. What do we mean by this concept of feminization of poverty? As we saw that majority of the females are working in the informal sector, wherein they are not getting due wages. At times they are even getting less than minimum wage, forget about the living wage. So we are seeing that women are not able to earn enough. Okay, so in order to tackle this poverty, feminization of poverty, we need to enhance the participation of women in quality jobs and we need to provide them living wage as well. Then it would enable us to adhere to the idea of sustainable development goal. For example, sustainable development goal 1, no poverty. SDG goal number 5, gender equality. SDG goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. And SDG goal number 10, reduced inequalities. And this would also enable us to improve social indicators, because as we have discussed many times that as and when a woman becomes economically empowered, she gets the power to decide with respect to her reproductive rights. Okay, her say in family planning increases up to a great extent. And when this happens, we would be seeing a reduction in the infant mortality rate as well as maternal mortality rate. Now, what all steps the government has taken to enhance the female participation in the workforce in India? As we have seen that this is on a rise. Why is it so? We have come up with the Maternity Benefit Amendment Act, wherein the government increased the paid maternity leave for women employees to 26 weeks. And it also made crèche facility mandatory for establishment which are employing 50 or more women workers. Then we have the Anganwadi centers under the ICDS scheme, wherein the women can safely leave their children and they can go for work. Then we have National Food Security Act, wherein we have the provision that 6,000 rupees would be provided to pregnant and lactating women. And we also have POSH Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, okay, which is going a long way in ensuring safe working environment for women. Having understood the steps taken, what more needs to be done so that we can increase the female labor force participation rate equal to the global average that we are seeing? So first and foremost, we need to provide the women, especially in the blue collar jobs, with the living wage so that they can also have a decent standard of living, and this would enable us to tackle the phenomena of feminization of poverty as well. Then we need to invest in the care infrastructure. So Seva Sangini, it has carried out an experiment in different Indian cities that if we come up with the crèche facilities, it leads to increased participation of the women in the workforce, okay, because they know that they can safely leave their children there. So we need to invest in the care infrastructure. Public crèches can be operated near the work sites, okay, or near the industrial areas. Then we need to address this gender stereotype that taking care of the elderlies and taking care of the newborn baby is the sole responsibility of a mother. Father should also come forward. Male should also take the responsibility of care work. So for this, we need to come up with the parental leaves. Okay, men or the father of the child should also be provided with parental leave so that we can address this gender stereotype that taking care of the newborn baby is merely the responsibility of the mother. Then we need to address the regulatory cholesterol. What we are seeing in different states, we have different laws wherein women are not allowed to work in a particular sector and wherein the women are not allowed to work in the night shift. So different states should learn from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, because these are the only two states that has allowed the women to work in all kind of establishments. So this should be replicated in other states as well. Then we need to promote the self-help groups, because self-help groups play a great role when it comes to providing livelihood opportunities to the female. We have the famous Kudambashri model of Kerala. Okay, so on that line, we should give a boost to the self-help groups as well. And lastly, we need to start gender sensitization from home, from schools, and we also need to do gender sensitization at workplace. Because what we have seen is why the women are seeing the glass ceiling when it comes to promotion. After a particular point, they are not promoted because the organizations have this gender stereotype that women cannot actively manage their household responsibility as well as the professional commitments. So we need to start the gender sensitization from the home. Why home? So that men also come forward and they should contribute in the domestic work. They should also come forward and should take care of the newborn babies and the elderly people. Okay, so we need to emphasize upon the gender sensitization. Only then we would be effectively be able to realize the sustainable development goal number 5. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. I have framed a practice question for you people. So do practice this question and let us know your answers in the comment section. With this, let's move on to the simplified section. Now, beginning with the simplified section, recently the Lok Sabha has passed the income tax bill, which is going to widen the power of the tax officials in India. This particular topic you can associate with the economy section of our prelim syllabus. Now, this new bill is going to simplify and rationalize the previous Income Tax Act of 1961. On what basis I am saying this? Because in the new bill, as compared to the previous act, we have reduced the number of words, we have reduced the number of chapters, we have reduced the number of sections also. And this new bill would also enable us to reduce the taxation related litigations in the court. Why? Because this new bill is intended to provide greater clarity with regard to taxation related terms. So in this new bill, you will find more number of tables. So we have 57 tables as compared to the 18 which we have in the previous act, and we have also increased the number of formulas from 6 to 46 in the new bill. Now, what is the problematic provision of this particular bill? So this bill has widened the power of the tax officials. Now, you are supposed to share your password with the tax official when they want to access your true tax obligation. And the standing committee has defended this provision. Why? Because a person usually do not cooperate with the tax official so that the tax official can easily have access to your digital documents which is there on your WhatsApp as well as email. Okay, that is how the standing committee has defended this particular provision. But the opposition political party have raised concern because this power which has been given to the tax official that they can get your password with respect to your WhatsApp and the email, this goes against the right to privacy, okay, which has been declared as a fundamental right after the Puttaswamy judgment. Now, let's just explore certain other prelim pointers with regard to this income tax bill. So, it is built on simple principle. Simple, why? Because we have concised the content when it comes to this new income tax bill as compared to the previous act. It is I stands for integrated and concise, so we have reduced the number of sections, the number of chapters, the number of words being used. Then it is going to minimize the litigation. How? Because in this new bill, we have come up with FAQs, guidance notes and explanation. Then it would make the taxation system more transparent. Why? Because we have come up with more number of formulas and more number of tables, which would be providing greater clarity with respect to taxation related concepts. And this would be going a long way in reducing the tax ambiguity as well as tax related litigation. Then we are open to learn and adapt from the global best practices. And this would make our taxation system more efficient because we have made it more simple and we are ready to learn from best global practices as well. Now, in this particular bill, we have come up with the tax year concept. Previously, we had the assessment year concept. Now, this has been removed and the tax year has been aligned with the financial year. That is, which would be starting from 1st of April and it would be ending at 31st March of the another year. For new businesses and establishment, the taxation obligations would be counted from the date of the establishment. For example, let's suppose one business unit was established on 1st June. So, from this particular date, we would be calculating the tax obligation of this particular industrial establishment. And this would go on till 31st March of the next year. And then again, the tax obligation of this particular entity would be aligned with the financial year. Okay. Then this has expanded the definition of income. Previously, it took into account the land that you hold, the shares that you hold, bullions that you hold, but now it would also be taking into account the virtual digital assets that you hold in form of cryptocurrency, in form of non-fungible tokens as well. Then, as we discussed right now, that this bill has given wide powers to the tax officials. So they can override the excess code. You are supposed to assist the tax officials when they want to access the digital documents which are available on your WhatsApp and email. But if you don't do that, then it would be liable for the tax official to get that passcode from you. Okay, to enter the virtual digital spaces such as social media account, email, Gmail, digital trading platforms if required during the tax investigations against you. We have widened the search and the seizure power of the tax official. So this include digital spaces also, WhatsApp and your email, okay, that can be accessed by the tax authorities. And now the digital documents which are available on your WhatsApp as well as email, that has been recognized explicitly under the bill, which are there on your computer system, WhatsApps, etc. And that would be scrutinized by the tax officials alongside your traditional assets like money, bullion, real estate, etc. And you are supposed to cooperate with the tax officials. Otherwise, they are supposed to get forcefully the passwords from you. And that is why the standing committee, parliamentary standing committee, has defended this particular provision of giving wide powers to the tax officials, that usually the persons do not cooperate with the income tax officials. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, recently the Supreme Court has ordered the capture of stray dogs in Delhi and has also ordered that they should never be released back on the street. This particular topic you can associate with GS paper 4, ethical issues. Why? Because here we are witnessing the ethical conflict between right to human life versus animal rights. Now, Supreme Court has took this case on a suo motu basis when the reports of death of a 6-year-old girl child came into picture, okay, when she was bitten by a stray dog. So in that respect, Supreme Court has issued the order that all the stray dogs in the Delhi needs to be detained and they should never be released back into the public spaces. And the Supreme Court has clearly stated that if anyone tries to go against this order of the Supreme Court, then that person would be liable for contempt of court. And how this is going to be done, this is to be decided by the authorities when it comes to Delhi, okay, municipal authorities in Delhi. And the court has further asked that the animal right activists, which time and again are, talking about the animal rights of the stray dogs, can they return the girl child which the parents actually lost? Now, when you look at the numbers, in Delhi itself, you have 10 lakh estimated population of stray dogs. Out of this, only 65,000 stray dogs have been sterilized. So, this highlights that there is huge chance of transmission of rabies from the stray dogs to humans. And in this year only, we had more than 26,000 cases. In this backdrop, the Supreme Court has issued this particular order. And as usual, the animal rights activists have opposed this particular order of the Supreme Court, stating that this order is unfeasible and unscientific. Because in order to implement this particular order, the Delhi government has to come up with 2,000 centers to accommodate tens and thousands of community dogs or stray dogs. And this has been vehemently opposed by the PETA India as well, that is People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, that it would be difficult for the Delhi government to build enough number of dog shelters. Now, we need to understand that why this step was needed. So, if you go by the data, we have 60 million stray dogs in India. And every 10 seconds, one person is being bitten by a stray dog. This implies more than 3 million bites a year and 5,000 turn out to be fatal. And when you talk about dogs, they spread more than 60 diseases to people, rabies being one of them. And rabies is claiming at least 2 human lives every 3 hours. They also have health and environmental hazard because of the dog poop and the pee. Then what is the government policy which regulates the stray dog? So we have Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960, under which the center government in 2001 promulgated the ABC dogs rules, which talked about mandatory sterilization and immunization of the stray dogs by the local authority, animal welfare organization, private individuals, etc., who are the owners of the dogs. And It also stated that after immunization, you can release the dog back again into the locality. But what the Supreme Court has stated, don't release them ever back into the streets. Under this ABC dog rules of 2001, euthanization of a dog is allowed only if that dog is critically ill or fatally injured. Okay. In 2023, Centre government updated these ABC dog rules and it expanded its scope. Now it also covers the stray cats also, and it has put in place a 3-tiered monitoring structure to make sure that each and every stray dog is immunized and sterilized. Only then we will be able to prevent the transmission of rabies disease. And it allowed the dog to have, community to let feed the dog. Now let's just note down certain prelim pointers with regard to Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act of 1960. So its objective is to basically prevent the unnecessary pain or the suffering which the animals have to go through. And under section 4 of this particular act, the Animal Welfare Board of India was created. If you commit cruelty to animals for the first time, then fine that would be imposed on you would be between 10 rupees to 50 rupees. From the date I have committed the first offence, from that date, within 3 years, if I commit again offence for the second time, then in that case the fine would be 25 rupees to 100 rupees, or I might have to face imprisonment up to 3 months or both. Now this act clearly defines the animals and the various forms of cruelty which the animals have to go through. Mercy killing is allowed if the animal is suffering, okay, from some unbearable pain. And it also have the detailed rules which regulate the scientific experiments that we carry out on the animals. It has a limitation period. No prosecution for offence can be initiated after 3 months from the date of the offence. Now as rabies is also in news because of this particular Supreme Court order, let's just explore prelim pointers with regard to rabies as well. So it is a zoonotic disease which spread from animals to humans, and it is a viral disease which basically attacks the human nervous system. So it is caused by RNA virus which is found in the saliva of infected animals like dog, cats, monkey, etc. But majority of the rabies cases we witness from the dogs itself. When you talk about the incubation period, basically once you are bitten by a dog, in how much time you will start witnessing the symptoms. So incubation period typically is between 2 to 3 months. In certain cases it can range from 1 week to 1 year as well. What are the symptoms that we witness? Flu-like illness, fever, headache, nausea, vomiting, anxiety, confusion, hyperactivity, and at the severe stage you will be witnessing hallucination, insomnia, lack of sleep, etc. And what is the best way to prevent this particular disease? To stop the transmission of this disease from its source. That means vaccinating the dogs and the puppies itself. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, an editorial has appeared in The Hindu which is criticizing one of the recent Supreme Court judgment as it goes against the very idea of gender justice. You can relate this particular topic with GS paper 1, issues related to women. We are basically referring to Shivangi Bansal versus Sahib Bansal case. This case basically relates to Section 85 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or Section 498A of IPC, okay, which has been replaced by Section 85 in the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which deals with the cruelty against women in marriages, wherein the husband and his relatives would be punished with imprisonment for 3 years and with a fine. So under this particular provision, cruelty has been defined very broadly. It takes into account the dowry related harassment as well. And if the family is forcing the woman to commit suicide, that is also being covered. We also have other penal legislation, that is Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961, okay, which works harmlessly with these other provisions which are there. Now, what the Supreme Court has stated with respect to this particular case, let's just explore that. So, previously it was the Allahabad High Court which stated that no arrest should be made from the date the complaint is being registered under this Section 85 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which deals with cruelty against women. And the Allahabad High Court further stated that district level family welfare committee should be created because they are well suited to deal with this family related issues. And this directive of the Allahabad High Court has been approved by the Supreme Court in this recent judgment of Shivangi Bansal versus Sahib Bansal case. Now, why it is problematic? if for 2 months no arrest would be made, then this would be creating a chilling effect on the complainant. The woman would not be incentivized to go and register a complaint with respect to domestic violence. And it is also putting the life of the complainant at risk. And this would give a reason to the police also that they can delay the investigation. Proper investigation would also not be initiated at the right time. Now, the writer is agreeing to this particular fact that yes, when it comes to family related issues, they are better resolved in alternative dispute resolution mechanism like mediation as compared to taking the matter to court. But this is applicable in case of divorce related issues or custody of child or other family related cases, but wherein the case is with respect to violence against the woman, that should not be resolved through mediation mechanism or other alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Now, further, there is always a question of misuse when it comes to this particular provision of IPC and now the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. The Supreme Court has also pointed out in various judgments that this provision is being misused by the woman. In Preeti Gupta versus State of Jharkhand 2010 judgment of the Supreme Court, Sushil Kumar Sharma versus Union of India case of 2005, and in 2014 judgment also Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar. In this judgment of 2014, Supreme Court issued strict guidelines before arrest in anti-cruelty cases and has directed the state government to instruct its police officers not to automatically arrest when a case under section 498A of IPC is being registered. The writer is pointing out that time and again in various case laws, the Supreme Court has stated that this provision is being misused by the woman, but there is no concrete empirical evidence to prove this, that this section is being misused. And the writer is further pointing out that the court does not have the institutional competence to question the legislative wisdom, because it is the legislature which came up with this particular provision. And on what grounds the court is pointing out that this provision is being subjected to misuse? Low conviction rate in such cases, merely 18% according to National Crime Record Bureau data of 2022. That means we are witnessing only 1 out of 5 cases leading to conviction. But the writer is pointing out that this is much higher than those in several other offences. And a low conviction rate does not automatically imply that this provision is being misused by the woman. We need to understand that when it comes to Indian society, it is a close-knit society wherein family relations play a very dominating role. For the time being, the case is going on in the court. There is pressure from the family members on the woman that let's just settle the matter. That is one reason why there is low conviction. And another reason being that family members have to testify that yes, the violence was committed against the woman in a criminal court. Usually the family members do not want to deteriorate their family bonds. That is another concern. And then it becomes very difficult for the police officers also to get the adequate evidence of violence because this violence is being committed in intimate spaces. So it is because of these reasons why we are witnessing low conviction rate. It is not implying automatically that this provision is being misused by the women in India. And the writer further points out that if you go by the National Crime Record Bureau, at least 1,30,500 cases were registered under this particular law in 2022. Whereas the Family Health Survey 5 has pointed out that there is gross underreporting of the violence cases by the women in several states. And we are witnessing a rise in number according to the Women's Center, Humsafar. It is because of greater awareness among the women with respect to their rights. Okay, based on this, we cannot draw a conclusion that this provision is being misused by the woman. And if the higher constitutional court, that is the Supreme Court, also points out that this provision is being misused, this highlights the gender stereotyping which is there at the higher institutional top court in India as well, okay, which exists within the criminal justice system. And the writer further points out that now, even if we assume that there are false cases filed under the law, the potential for misuse is inherent in any other law. And the writer further points out that the Supreme Court has stated in Sushil Kumar Sharma 2005 judgment, wherein the validity of this very law of IPC was under challenge, therein the Supreme Court has stated clearly that misuse of a law cannot become a ground to do away or strike away that particular law. But now what is happening? With coming up of the cooling period of 2 months from the time the complaint is being lodged with respect to the section 85 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, this goes against this very verdict of the Supreme Court itself. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now recently, the Trump administration has ordered NASA to shut down 2 of its satellites which enable us to monitor the carbon dioxide level at the global level. This particular topic you can associate with the science section of our prelim syllabus. Now whatever is important I have highlighted for your reference. We'll be decoding this news in a simplified manner. So what's the context? The Trump administration has asked NASA that prepare for the shutdown of 2 major satellites which are currently enabling us to monitor the carbon dioxide level and also enabling us to effectively monitor the crop health globally. However, it is unclear that why the Trump administration has given this directive to NASA. Now let's just understand what are these orbiting carbon observatory. So it is a series of dedicated Earth remote sensing satellite which are designed specifically to observe the carbon dioxide level and to better understand the characteristics of climate change. Now the first mission was failed after the launch itself. So we came up with the second one which was launched in 2014 and the third mission was launched in 2019, okay, which went to International Space Station to further enhance the observation of atmospheric carbon dioxide. Now what is the difference between the second mission and the third mission? Both of them are doing the same job. They help us to monitor the carbon dioxide level and they also help us to monitor the crop health. But the difference is when it comes to the second mission which flies around the Earth in a sun synchronous polar orbit, it allows us to see one particular location, let's suppose this is location 1, at a same time in a particular day. But when I talk about the third mission, okay, it flies aboard the International Space Station and it orbits the Earth every 90 minutes. So this third mission enables us to observe a location at different time in a day. Second mission was enabling us to observe a particular location at the Earth at same time each single day. But when I talk about the third mission, it is enabling us to observe a particular location at different times in a day. Okay, that enable us to create comprehensive data set. Now, why are these missions important? They have enhanced our understanding with respect to the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. And previously, when it comes to monitoring the carbon dioxide level, the scientists used to rely on the instruments which were placed at various locations at the Earth's surface itself. But these instruments were not enabling us to get the holistic data of the entire planet when it comes to carbon dioxide level. Now, when it comes to these 2 missions, they have enabled us to get to know surprising discoveries also. Previously, it was believed that the tropical rainforest functions as the lungs of the planet. Why? Because they absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But the data from the second mission has revealed that the boreal forests, which are also known as taiga, are playing a remarkable role when it comes to absorption of carbon dioxide from the higher latitudes in the northern hemisphere. And the missions have also pointed us that how a natural carbon sink, that is the forest, can become a carbon emitter due to drought and deforestation. And this mission also helped us to effectively monitor the crop health. By using the data set, the NASA and other agencies were able to create high resolution maps of plant growth across the world, which benefited the farmers. The last question that we need to explore is why Trump administration has directed the NASA to shut down these 2 particular satellites? Is it because of the cost? Let's look into that. So according to the expert, the cost of maintaining these satellites in the SMAIL is very small fraction of the money that was spent to design and launch these satellites. Okay, roughly $750 million was spent in designing, building and launch of the second and the third mission. And maintaining these satellites in the orbit is costing around $50 million per year. This includes the cost of downloading the data from these 2 satellites and maintaining a network of calibration sensors on the ground so that we can effectively get the data from these 2 satellites. So the experts point out that from the economic point of view, this two missions should continue to operate. Okay. So it makes no economic sense to terminate these two remote sensing satellites, which are enabling us to effectively monitor the carbon dioxide level at the global level and to effectively monitor the crop health as well. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next topic. Now recently, the Perito Moreno Glacier, which is situated in Argentina, is in news. This particular topic you can associate with places in news in prelim section. Now why Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina is in news? Because since 2019, we are witnessing the ice loss when it comes to this particular glacier at an accelerated rate. Now why this is a concern? Because previously we don't used to witness this much amount of ice loss when it comes to this particular glacier. Previously this glacier was quite stable. But currently the experts do not know what is the exact reason why we are witnessing glacial retreat when it comes to the Perito Moreno Glacier. But the obvious reason is climate change. Now when you talk about this particular glacier, it is situated in the Los Glaciers National Park, which is itself a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now this particular glacier is nearly 20 miles long. And previously, why we don't used to witness glacial retreat when it comes to Perito Moreno Glacier? Because it is situated along the Andes mountain and this region is warm because of the effect of the seas. And here previously what we used to witness, the amount of ice which was lost as compared to the ice which was formed. Okay, so the replenishment was quite high. The amount of ice that this glacier was losing and the amount of ice which was being formed, there was a difference. Loss was less as compared to the ice which was formed. And another reason why we witnessed stability when it comes to this particular glacier previously was, it is situated on a ridge of bedrock beneath the ice, which is basically consisting of unweathered rocks. Okay, so the scientists have pointed out that if the ice become thin, it could risk of detaching from the ridge without the bedrock to hold it in place. And then the ice would start floating in the water of the lake, making it even more vulnerable to thinning. Let's just note down certain prelim pointers with regard to this particular glacier. So it is also called the White Giant and it is located near the city of El Calafate in Argentina province of Santa Cruz. It lies in the Andes mountain in the South America and it comes under the Los Glacier National Park, which we have already discussed. It was found during the last ice age, which occurred approximately 18,000 years ago. And estimates suggest that the glacier is 30 km long. Its height is roughly 60 meters above the water level. Due to its enormous size, this particular glacier is a major source of fresh water when it comes to Argentina. Now, since Argentina is in news, let's look into the bordering countries. So we have Chile, we have Bolivia, Paraguay and Uruguay and Brazil. And you need to also make note of one prelim pointer that Argentina and Chile international border is the third longest international border after US, Canada and Kazakhstan, Russia. That's all that we need to know from today's analyst. Quiz would be coming right up next. So whatever we have learned, based on that, try to solve the quiz. Till then, keep smiling, keep learning. Have a very nice day all.